"It's okay if you don't want to look in there. Just sorry. Let's get you some help," the officer said, attempting to console the distressed individuals in the home. On September 13th, 2023, officers were dispatched to 1606 Linwood Avenue in Evansville, Indiana, responding to a medical emergency. The caller, David Shanabaum, reported a horrifying discovery. He had found his 6-month-old son in his bassinet, covered in blood. "We have a rat problem here. I've been trying to get rid of them. I've got Terminix here. I've got bait boxes. I've got traps set," he explained as the gravity of the situation began to unfold. In a panic, David Shanabaum called dispatch, his voice trembling with fear. He revealed that he had discovered his 6-month-old son in his bassinet, drenched in blood. "We have a rat problem here," he explained, desperation seeping into his words. "I've been trying to get rid of them. I've got Terminix here. I've got bait boxes. I've got traps set." In a chilling assertion, David Shanabaum insisted he bore no marks when he went to bed that night. "No marks on me at all. No mark at all." But the reality was far more harrowing. An ambulance rushed to the scene, stabilizing the child before transporting him to St. Vincent Hospital. The gravity of the situation escalated as the child was later flown to Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis for urgent treatment. The medical team discovered over 50 marks on his forehead, right cheek, and nose. 2 additional wounds marred his right thigh, while his right foot and toes bore several more injuries. A particularly severe wound on the top of the ring finger of his left hand exposed the bone beneath. The extent of the injuries was devastating. His right hand suffered traumatic lacerations, with gaping wounds that extended from his elbow to his wrist. All 4 fingers and the thumb on his right hand were stripped of flesh at the tips, leaving the fingertip bones alarmingly exposed. The damage to his index and pinky fingers was especially severe, as flesh was missing halfway down each digit. According to hospital records, this child had experienced a near-fatal event. When he arrived at the emergency room, his body temperature plummeted to 93 degrees Fahrenheit, blood pressure dangerously low at 50/30, and oxygen levels alarmingly at 69%. Yet, by the time he was transferred to the other hospital, there was a slight improvement. His temperature climbed to 98 degrees Fahrenheit, blood pressure rose to 89/50, and oxygen levels soared to 100%. However, the child required a blood transfusion due to the significant loss of blood. While his name has been redacted, he did survive, though he would carry the scars of his ordeal for life. From this point forward, I will refer to him simply as the child in this report. Detective Helm, the first to respond, determined that David Shanabaum resided at the address with his wife. Angel Shanabaum, along with their 3 children, had lived in the home for at least 4 years. It emerged that Angel's sister, Delana Thurman, had moved in 4 months prior with her 2 children, adding to the household's complexity. All body cam footage and crime scene photographs are meticulously documented and will be displayed throughout this investigation. As the scene unfolded, both David and Delana were present when police arrived, while Angel was conspicuously absent. David informed officers that she had checked herself into Deaconess Crosspoint, a mental health clinic, and was expected to be released shortly. Detective Spencer, also on the scene, began assessing the home's conditions, noting the troubling environment that surrounded this family. Meanwhile, Angel Shanabaum was absent from the chaotic scene. David informed the police that she had checked herself into Deaconess Crosspoint, a mental health clinic. He mentioned she was expected to be released within days. Detective Spencer, observing the home's disarray, felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. In the heart of the chaotic home, the bedroom belonging to David and Angel Shanabaum revealed a disturbing scene. A bassinet stood ominously in the corner, a mere 3 feet from the head of the bed, suspended 2 feet above the floor. This bassinet, supported by 2 metal legs, was far from innocent. Between the head of the bed and the bassinet lay a diaper disposal container, stained with a large amount of blood. Detective Spencer's eyes widened as he noted a boppy pillow, also drenched in crimson, lying in the bassinet. An empty bottle rested within the bassinet, a chilling detail amid the horror. The lid of the diaper container was smeared with blood, and rodent footprints marred the scene, leaving a grim testament to the home's neglect. The atmosphere was suffocating, thick with the stench of decay and filth. The room was cluttered, strewn with trash, including remnants of discarded food. Evidence of rodent infestation was unmistakable. Items had been chewed and rodent feces littered the floor. As investigators examined other parts of the house, they found the kitchen and basement equally overrun with garbage and droppings. A foul odor clung to the air, a grim reminder of the family's negligence. David Schannebaum, aware of the situation, mentioned his belief that a rat had died behind the stove, prompting him to attempt its replacement. Throughout the home, rat traps were scattered about, and a bait box occupied a corner in the basement. The backyard was a jungle of overgrown vegetation, while the detached garage overflowed with disorder. It was here that David found himself taken to police headquarters for questioning. Upon arrival, he was read his Miranda rights and agreed to speak with Detective Spencer. David explained that the house was owned by his cousin, who had permitted them to live there rent-free, provided that David maintained the property. Yet, he confessed to failing in this responsibility. The rodent problem had first emerged in March 2023, prompting him to contact Terminix for assistance. The company began monthly treatments, supplying David with traps and a bait box. Despite these efforts, the infestation continued unabated. David reported catching as many as 4 rats each night, quickly exhausting his supply of traps. He provided detectives with text message records showing his communications with Terminix, detailing numerous visits between March and August. Olivia was the service technician on all but one occasion in August, when James McCullough stepped in. During his visit, James documented the trash-strewn backyard, noting that such refuse would inevitably attract rodents. He didn't enter the house, a decision that seemed increasingly questionable in light of the crime scene photos. David's comments suggested a desperate attempt at justification, as he stated, "We're trying to get this fixed." Yet, Detective Spencer couldn't help but think, "No, you need to clean your house." With the tension rising, Spencer pressed David to recount his actions leading up to the harrowing discovery of the child. Detective Spencer, noting the chaotic scene, pressed David to recount his actions leading up to the horrifying moment. "We're trying to get this fixed," David insisted, but the detective's skepticism was palpable. It was clear to Spencer that the state of the home suggested deeper issues. "No, you need to clean your house," he thought, as David's disheveled demeanor painted a troubling picture. On that fateful morning, David recounted how he and Angel Schannebaum tucked their 4 older children into bed at precisely 7 p.m. All siblings shared the same cramped bedroom. Following this routine, he prepared a bottle for the infant and gently placed him in the bassinet located in his own bedroom. As the clock struck 8 p.m., David and Angel began the mundane task of cleaning their home. Later, they stepped outside onto the porch for a smoke break. David's voice dripped with sarcasm as he questioned, "Clean the house? What the hell did they clean?" He noted that the door to the children's bedroom was left ajar. This way, they could remain alert to the slightest sound from the infant if he began to fuss. David recalled that around 11 p.m. the child did indeed start to fuss. Delana Thurman, David's sister, entered the bedroom to attend to the baby who had lost his bottle. Delana returned the bottle to the infant and exited the room. David claimed he didn't hear any more noise from the child until he himself fell asleep on the couch around 3 a.m. He stated that he and Angel woke up at 6:30 a.m., resuming their parental duties. Angel went to the older children's bedroom to prepare them for the day, while David headed back to his own room to check on the baby. Upon glancing into the bassinet, his heart sank. The child lay on his stomach, and blood was smeared everywhere. Panic surged through David as he picked the child up, desperately trying to awaken him. He yelled for Delana to assist him, passing the child over to her. The urgency of the situation escalated and they rushed to the bathroom. In a frantic effort, they washed the child with water, searching for the source of the blood. It was then that David noticed the horrific condition of the child's right hand. All the fingers appeared to have been chewed on. He later told Detective Spencer about the gruesome discovery. Without a shadow of a doubt, David believed that rats were responsible for the child's injuries. The infant bore multiple bites on his forehead, cheek, and nose. When Spencer inquired whether any of the other children had suffered similar rat attacks, David firmly stated that they had not. The investigation took a crucial turn as police then brought Delana in for questioning. She revealed that she had moved in with David and Angel in May of 2023. Upon her arrival, she quickly became aware of the troubling rodent infestation plaguing the household. Delana explained that David had engaged Terminix to treat the house for cockroaches. However, once he discovered the presence of mice and rats, the pest control team expanded their services. Again, I reiterate, don't blame Terminix. Clean your damn house, Delana emphasized, her frustration palpable. She had been present for all the appointments when Olivia, the Terminix technician, came to the home. Delana recalled that Olivia sprayed the exterior but had only treated the interior on one occasion, leaving a bait box in the basement. Angel was present during these visits, fully aware of the deteriorating conditions of their living space. The police referenced a text David had sent to Olivia, claiming he discovered where the rats were entering the house and needed to address it. Delana speculated that this entry point was likely in the basement, as that was when the rat sightings began. She added that she had seen the rodents scurrying around the kitchen. This escalating rodent issue had become a significant concern, especially since David was in the midst of installing a new stove. After removing the old appliance, the situation worsened, with trash accumulating around the house. Delana vividly recalled how rats would dart away as she opened the kitchen door, a haunting reminder of the chaos that had taken over their home. Delana Thurman, David's aunt, provided her account. She emphasized that the door to the kitchen was always kept shut and locked, a precaution to keep the children safe. She revealed that she often slept on the couch in the living room, occasionally spotting a rat darting through the shadows, a haunting reminder of their ongoing vermin problem. Delana claimed she had never seen any rats or mice in the children's room, yet David had been using traps obtained from Terminix in a futile attempt to eliminate the rodents. The authorities were not convinced, and they pressed Delana for more details about the night in question. What was her routine on the day the child was found? Delana corroborated David's account, stating that the night before, she had put the children to bed around 7:30 p.m. She recalled that David placed the baby in his bassinet around 8 p.m., and later a friend had come over to visit. Delana recounted how, after spending a few hours on the porch with her friend, she had retreated inside around 11 p.m. to use the bathroom. It was then she heard the child fussing. Rushing into the bedroom, she realized the bottle was not within reach. Delana quickly fed the baby, stepping back to observe him. At that moment, he seemed perfectly fine, unharmed and content. She returned to the porch but lingered only for another 30 minutes. By midnight, her friend had departed and David had come back inside. They continued tidying up the living room, eventually settling down on the couch to watch TV. "Clean up the living room? What a load of cobblers," Delana thought, recalling the chaotic circumstances. David, a heavy sleeper, had drifted off before her, oblivious to the horrors that would soon unfold. She admitted that she did not attempt to wake David to move into his bedroom. Delana fell asleep around 3 a.m., leaving the door to David's bedroom open the entire time they were on the couch, yet she claimed she did not hear the baby cry. The blaring of her alarm at 6:30 a.m. jolted her awake. Upon waking, Delana made her way to the other children's bedroom to rouse them, while David went to check on the baby. It was then that David's voice rang out, calling her into the room. "This child needs to go to the hospital," he said, urgency in his tone. When Delana entered the bedroom, her heart sank at the sight before her. Blood covered the bassinet, and David was cradling the child, who was also soaked in blood. Without hesitation, she took the baby from him and rushed to the bathroom to wash away the crimson evidence. She bore witness to the horrifying injuries. As David frantically dialed 911, Elena was preoccupied with the chaos unfolding around them. When the police arrived, they turned to Elena, inquiring if any of the other children had previously suffered injuries from mice or rats. With a heavy heart, Elena recounted a disturbing incident where her oldest daughter, alongside David's oldest daughter, had confided in a teacher that their toes had been injured by mice while they slept. The revelation sent chills through those who heard it. "That's just disgusting," a sentiment echoed among the officers present. On September 5, 2023, Christina, a diligent worker from the Department of Child Services, made her way to the residence, determined to uncover the truth behind the unsettling claims. In a conversation marked by tension, Christina confronted Elena about the alarming incidents involving the daughters and the mice. Elena, seemingly unbothered, insisted that they had merely a normal amount of mice for their area. "What the hell does that mean?" Christina wondered, grappling with the implications of such a casual dismissal. In a concerning observation, Delana Thurman expressed doubt regarding the explanation that the marks on the child's toes were due to a mouse. Instead, she noted that these injuries appeared to be scratches from the bed frame. Christina, a diligent worker from the Department of Child Services, arranged for the child to be examined by the school nurse, who could not determine the origin of the marks. As the situation escalated, Christina began discussing a safety plan with Delana. After the child was transported to the hospital, Christina was informed that she would return for a follow-up visit. The Department of Child Services, or DCS, was contacted, and family case manager Taylor Spain arrived at the scene. Upon investigation, it was revealed that David and Angel Shanabaum had a history of previous DCS cases. A review of those cases illuminated a troubling pattern. In December 2022, DCS substantiated a claim of neglect against David and Angel, stemming from an incident where one of their children was injured due to inadequate supervision. Consequently, an informal adjustment was initiated to address these concerns. The case was assigned to a DCS family manager who continued to monitor the family's situation. Then, on June 17, 2023, a grave allegation of physical assault emerged, made by one of the children against David. DCS found the claim credible, especially since the family was already engaged in preservation services aimed at preventing further issues. To address these alarming revelations, Malinga Home-Based Services began working with David and Angel on April 15, 2023. This program involved bi-weekly home visits by a case manager, with detailed documentation shared with law enforcement. The notes from these visits painted a disturbing picture of their home environment. The house was cluttered, trash littered the floors, and animal feces were present. Piles of dirty dishes filled the sink, and foul odors permeated the kitchen, suggesting a neglectful living situation. The documentation indicated a steady decline in the household's condition. Following a serious incident involving the child, Angel was finally released from Deaconess Cross Point on September 13, 2023. However, upon her release, DCS officials mandated the removal of all children from both Angel and David's care, as well as the removal of Delana's children from her custody. In a bid to secure a new start, David quickly found another residence for the family, accomplishing this feat in less than 24 hours. Simultaneously, he requested Terminix to conduct a comprehensive inspection of their house on Linwood Avenue, signaling his desperate attempts to rectify the situation. As the distressing saga unfolded, it culminated in a courtroom where Angel Shanabaum faced the consequences of her actions. On October 24th, she pleaded guilty to 1 count of neglect of a dependent resulting in serious bodily injury and 2 additional counts of neglect of a dependent. The court sentenced her to 4 years in prison, while David received a staggering 16-year sentence for similar charges. His conviction reflected the gravity of the neglect and serious bodily injury inflicted upon their child. Delana Thurman, likewise facing the repercussions, reached a plea deal concerning her neglect charges, resulting in a 2-year probation sentence. The police report detailed a harrowing account, noting that the child bore over 50 marks on his face and body, a chilling testament to the neglect he endured. Further compounding the horror, the report revealed that the child's fingertips had been gnawed off, exposing bone. The stark question lingered. "And you're telling me you couldn't hear him crying?" The gravity of this situation left many searching for answers, including opinions on Lance Briggs and his future wife in light of these tragic events. In the shadows of this case, the community grappled with disbelief and outrage, as the echoes of the child's suffering resonated far beyond the confines of their home. In a small town in Oklahoma, Ray Dawn Smith and Mika's paths intertwined during their high school years. Ray, a promising football player, shared the spotlight with Mika, the beloved homecoming queen who dazzled alongside her escort, Canada Lance. Their youthful romance blossomed after graduation, culminating in a marriage officiated on the porch of Mika's parents' house. On a sweltering July 15th in 2000, Ray donned a white satin dress as the couple exchanged vows, with the heat only intensifying the moment. Yet their union quickly devolved into chaos. For 2 tumultuous years, they indulged in excessive drinking and wild partying, spiraling further away from the love that once united them. Their choices veered dangerously off course. Ray juggled jobs caring for the elderly and working in manufacturing, all while attending classes at Seminole State College. The marriage crumbled before the birth of their daughter, which took place on December 28, 2002, leaving the couple divorced and struggling. Their daughter, Kelsey, would become the tragic focal point of this story. To clarify any questions surrounding paternity, a DNA test was conducted. The results, received in April 2003, confirmed that Lance Briggs was Kelsey's biological father, a detail that would reveal itself as crucial later on. Following the test, Lance began to exercise his visitation rights with Kelsey. Testimonies from Lance and his family painted a picture of a devoted father, but the truth behind this facade would soon come to light. To understand the complexity of Lance's character, we must delve into the court transcripts that expose his true nature. During these proceedings, it became evident that Kelsey enjoyed her time with Lance, and he relished in being present for her. As an engaged father, Lance was actively involved in Kelsey's life. He provided direct care, feeding her, changing her diapers, playing with her, and reading her bedtime stories. He fostered a connection between Kelsey and her extended family, ensuring she spent cherished moments with her grandparents, aunts, and cousins. When Lance remarried, his new wife embraced Kelsey as her own, becoming a loving and supportive stepmother. However, in the summer of 2004, Lance's life took a drastic turn as he was called to active duty service with the U.S. Reserves. He began pre-deployment preparations in September 2004, eventually finding himself in Iraq. During his absence, Lance wished for his wife and parents to maintain regular visitation with Kelsey, a request that was facilitated through court intervention. It was not until October of that year that Lance returned permanently to Oklahoma. This narrative painted Lance as a devoted father, his new wife standing by him as a loving figure in Kelsey's life. But beneath the surface, a darker truth awaited discovery. When Lance and Ray were engaged, they had moved into a house that Ray had purchased for them. It was within those walls that Ray unearthed Lance's secret, a crippling drug addiction that marked the beginning of their descent into abuse. One fateful day, Ray and her sister Rochelle, just 14 years old, sat on the porch of Ray's house, sharing laughter and light-hearted moments, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. The facade of their life together crumbled as the addiction led to increasingly volatile behavior from Lance. As the laughter faded, the shadow of despair began to loom larger, setting the stage for the tragic events that would follow. In a harrowing scene, Lance seized Ray by the arm, dragging her into the house with a force that left no room for resistance. He slammed the door shut, locking Rochelle outside. Peering through the window, Rochelle was met with a chilling sight. Ray lay flat on her back on the floor, helpless, as Lance pinned her down, sitting on her thighs and restraining her arms with his knees. With a sinister intent, he began to abuse her. In desperation, Rochelle raced from door to door, seeking help, but when Lance caught wind of the approaching police sirens, he fled the scene. Days before their wedding, the tension in the household escalated as Lance entertained one of his drug associates. An unforeseen trigger ignited his rage, and he unleashed it on Ray, striking her in the stomach. After the friend left, Lance, indifferent to Ray's unbearable pain, forced her to accompany him to the movies. In a state of fear, she sat silently through the film, stifling her cries. Once home, she sought refuge in the bathroom, where she reached out to her mother for help. Her mother arrived without delay. The atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive as Lance's drug-fueled outbursts took a toll on Ray. After he attacked her in the stomach, he dragged her to the movies, where she sat in a state of heightened anxiety, too afraid to voice her pain. Upon their return, Ray hurried to the bathroom, urgently calling for her mother, who rushed to her side. Ray endured intense suffering, compelled to join Lance for a movie despite her agony. Each moment felt like an eternity as she fought back tears, terrified of what he might do. Once home, she retreated to the bathroom to call her mother, who promptly arrived to offer support. Ray and Lance found themselves at the hospital, where the devastating news broke. Ray, pregnant at the time, had lost the baby. This tragedy spiraled her into a deep depression, and soon she began using drugs alongside Lance. This dark chapter unfolded in the early months of 2002. One day, while walking her dog, Ray stumbled upon a bustling yard sale in the neighborhood. Among the crowd, she spotted her father and felt an overwhelming urge to hide, knowing he would see her bruised face, a testament to her suffering at Lance's hands. In that moment, as she noticed patches of hair missing from her scalp, evidence of Lance's violence, Ray realized the urgency of her situation. She took an alternate route to avoid her father, understanding that it was time to leave Lance behind. By March 2002, she found the strength to throw him out of her life and began dating a man named Jason. However, the respite was short-lived. In the final days of March, Lance broke into Ray's home, unleashing chaos. He left her a chilling message. "You want to play games? We can play games. You decide." Overwhelmed by fear, Ray felt compelled to return to him, breaking her ties with Jason. By May, the tension between Ray and Lance reached a boiling point. They had plans to go out with friends, and Ray stopped to pick up McDonald's for dinner. When Lance noticed she had forgotten to supersize his meal, fury erupted within him. In a fit of rage, he shoved her against the wall, attempting to strangle her with his forearm. But Ray, fueled by desperation, managed to break free and fled in search of a phone. When her maternal grandmother spotted her, she guided Ray to a phone. They returned to the house only to find Lance had vanished. With trembling hands, Ray dialed the police, determined to report the horrors she had endured. The police tracked down Lance Briggs at a local laundromat, where he was taken into custody. In the wake of these events, Ray filed for divorce, a process that came to a close in July. Shortly after, she discovered she was pregnant again, which stirred confusion about Kelsey's paternity. Was Lance the father, or was it Jason, her ex-boyfriend? This uncertainty loomed over the family dynamic, casting shadows on Kelsey's early years. Yet, for the first couple of years of her life, Kelsey appeared healthy and happy, with Ray providing attentive care. In April 2003, when Kelsey was just 4 months old, she met her paternal family for the first time. Their presence became a regular part of her life. By August 2004, Ray and Kelsey left Ray's mother's home and settled into an apartment of their own. While Ray worked, Kelsey attended daycare. That month marked a significant change as Lance enlisted in the Army, departing Oklahoma. Both Katie and Ashley, Lance's fiancée, were granted visitation rights. Ray and Katie established a verbal schedule for visits, navigating the complexity of their new family structure. Yet complications arose. Katie, known for her difficult demeanor, would soon become a pivotal figure in the unfolding drama. In October, Ray met Michael Lee Porter, a man who would enter their lives with his own 2 children, 7-year-old Whitney and 2-year-old Michael, affectionately called Bobby. During the time Katie visited Kelsey and Ray began dating Michael, disturbing signs began to emerge. Bruises started to appear on Kelsey's small frame. Julie Sebastian, who oversaw Kelsey's daycare, became increasingly concerned. She noticed that Kelsey arrived every Monday with fresh bruises. The situation escalated when Julie reached out to Ray, only to be met with a troubling response. Ray claimed she was unaware of any abuse. Then, on a chilling night in January 2005, while darkness enveloped the home and everyone lay asleep, a tragic incident unfolded. Kelsey, in the early stages of potty training, attempted to climb out of her crib. In a heartbreaking turn, she slipped and fell onto a toy slide, letting out a scream that shattered the silence. Kelsey, still learning to navigate her new world, struggled with potty training. During her attempt to escape the confines of her crib, she slipped and fell, resulting in a visit to the emergency room. There, she was diagnosed with a broken collarbone, a common injury for children her age. A brace was placed on her, and she was sent home. Later that evening, Ashley, the fiancée of Lance, would become embroiled in the growing turmoil surrounding Kelsey's care. One fateful evening, when Kelsey was bathed by her mother, bruises and lesions were discovered on her tiny body. Alarmed, Angel Shanabaum and her mother, Katie Briggs, rushed Kelsey to the emergency room. There, Katie wasted no time in accusing Ray Dawn Smith of abusing Kelsey. This shocking claim triggered an immediate response from Child Services, launching a thorough investigation into the allegations. Though it was later determined that her injuries were accidental, the claims of abuse weighed heavily on the investigation. Despite the findings, Katie remained steadfast in her allegations against Ray, prompting a second investigation that ultimately led to Kelsey being removed from Ray's custody. Tensions soared between Kelsey's grandmother, Katie, and Ray, each feeling the strain of a fractured family. In the aftermath, Katie sought emergency guardianship, which was swiftly granted. Meanwhile, Ray approached Child Services, desperate to learn what steps she needed to take to regain custody of Kelsey. The response was clear. She needed to complete a series of requirements, including parenting classes. The situation surrounding Kelsey was troubling. Her mother, Ray Dawn Smith, was mandated to attend a 6-week domestic violence class, participate in an anger management program, complete a domestic violence inventory test, and undergo several evaluations. This sequence of events suggested a significant history of abuse that could not be ignored. The details of this case are staggering, and they demand your attention. As time progressed, Kelsey began to exhibit alarming signs of lethargy and significant weight loss, a troubling trend that continued into January 2005. At this critical juncture, Kelsey returned to her mother's home after Ray regained custody. She was living with her stepfather, Michael Lee Porter, whom she affectionately called Daddy Mike. Kelsey bore the marks of her suffering. Her injuries included a broken collarbone, a fractured leg, and numerous bruises marring her face. On January 17, 2005, Child Services confirmed the existence of abuse against Kelsey's mother after Kelsey was rushed to the emergency room. During this time, medical professionals documented bruises on Kelsey's lower back, buttocks, and thighs. By April 2005, both of her legs had been discovered to be broken. Medical examiners determined that these were spiral fractures, each at different stages of healing. These injuries were unmistakable indicators of abuse. Who would inflict such harm on a child? Following these revelations, Kelsey was once again placed into state custody. Tragically, in the short span of her life, she had been shuffled between numerous caregivers. Ultimately, Kelsey found herself back in the care of her mother and stepfather. On October 11, 2005, as her father prepared to return home from Iraq, Kelsey was laid down for a nap by Ray. Ray left to pick up her other daughter, leaving Kelsey in the care of Michael Porter. When Ray returned, the scene was harrowing. Ambulances were already present, and she was informed that Kelsey had been rushed to the hospital. Tragically, Kelsey passed away shortly after her arrival at the hospital. The cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma to the abdomen, a clear indication that she had suffered severe abuse, ultimately leading to her untimely demise. Lance Briggs received the devastating news just as he touched down back in America. Having anticipated a joyous reunion with his young daughter, he had even purchased a stuffed camel as a gift for Kelsey. Instead of celebrating her return, he found himself thrust into the grim responsibility of organizing her funeral. Kelsey was mourned in two separate funerals, one held by the Smith family, her maternal relatives, and another by the Briggs family, representing Lance's side. The tragedy of her life and death warranted a deeper examination into the circumstances that led to this heartbreaking conclusion. To understand the dynamics of the alleged abuse, we must first consider the role of Kelsey's mother. When Kelsey was born, Katie Briggs, her grandmother, insisted on a paternity test. Lance Briggs had shown little interest in fatherhood at that moment, even expressing reluctance to participate in the test. Lance had no desire for custody, nor did he attend any of the hearings related to Kelsey's welfare. He confided in others that he longed to move on with his life, hoping that Kelsey was not his child. In a chilling observation, it became evident that Katie, Kelsey's grandmother, had done everything in her power to make Ray's life a living nightmare. While Ray was not without fault, she clearly bore some blame in this tragic saga. Yet, it was unmistakable that Katie harbored a deep disdain for Ray. The situation called for a closer examination of the injuries meticulously documented by the medical examiner. Prepare yourself for the harrowing details. On January 8, 2005, Kelsey suffered a broken collarbone. The following day, Katie discovered an array of bruises in various shades on Kelsey's face, arms, back, and legs. By January 10th, Kelsey was admitted to the hospital, still reeling from her injury. The medical professionals noted additional bruises on her buttocks, back, and thighs. Ray attributed these injuries to Kelsey falling out of her crib. However, on January 14th, both Lance and his wife sought emergency care for Kelsey, who had sustained severe bruising on the side of her face. Just days later, on January 17th, Child Services received 2 reports on the same day after Ray left Kelsey overnight with her mother. It was on January 24th that the judge granted custody of Kelsey to Katie Briggs, ordering Ray to attend parenting classes as a condition. On February 3rd, Ray confessed to spanking Kelsey while she was still in her diaper. Yet on February 4th, despite the growing concerns, the judge decided to leave Kelsey in the care of the Briggs family, permitting only supervised visitation for Ray. 2 officers involved in the case voiced their disbelief that any abuse had occurred. However, as the days passed, Ray began giving conflicting accounts and denied responsibility for the bruises. On February 11th, she was granted supervised visitation with Kelsey for the weekends. By March 11th, Child Services reviewed the situation and allowed Ray unsupervised visits, provided that Michael Porter was not present. On March 31st, Ray contacted Child Services, expressing concerns over Kelsey's alarming hair loss. The weeks that followed saw a tug-of-war between Katie, Lance, and Child Services. On April 5th, Lance took it upon himself to speak with Child Services, voicing his apprehensions regarding Kelsey's unexplained bruises and opposing any supervised visitation with Ray. In April, Kelsey was rushed to the emergency room once more. This time, doctors uncovered spiral fractures in her legs, a hallmark of severe abuse. The medical staff recognized the signs as indicative of child abuse. During an attempt to speak with Kelsey, they broached the subject of abuse. In a haunting affirmation, Kelsey replied in the affirmative. However, when pressed about who had inflicted the harm, her silence spoke volumes. Katie recounted that these injuries had occurred during a non-supervised visit with Ray. Yet, Ray countered, claiming they happened while Kelsey was with her grandparents, Lance's parents. Amidst this chaotic backdrop, Ray and Michael Porter exchanged vows. As Kelsey's troubles deepened, her condition deteriorated in alarming ways. Her hair began to fall out, and her appetite vanished. Unsettling behaviors emerged. She began biting, bruising, and scratching others. She was often seen picking at her fingernails and toenails, a sign of her inner turmoil. Disturbingly, when Kelsey passed away, one of her toenails was missing. This detail raised questions about her well-being, particularly regarding her behavior around her grandmother, Katie Briggs. Witnesses noted that Kelsey appeared lethargic and often slept during visits after the case surrounding her protection was resolved. Judge Craig Key, troubled by the systemic failures in Kelsey's case, authored a book that highlighted these issues. He noted that despite Kelsey being placed in protective custody, it was evident she struggled to adapt to life within the Briggs household. A red flag was raised when her hair began to fall out in alarming clumps. The hair loss was so severe that a bald spot the size of a baseball appeared on the back of her head. During the trial, Judge Craig Key expressed uncertainty about who had abused Kelsey. It would later emerge that Michael Lee Porter was indeed the one responsible for her suffering. The abuse Kelsey endured was extensive and brutal, resulting in severe injuries. Unable to identify the abuser definitively, the judge made the tragic decision to return Kelsey to her mother. Yet Michael Porter's daughter later came forward, revealing that she witnessed Kelsey being abused. She testified that her father's cruelty was so extreme that it caused Kelsey to vomit. Another witness noted that Michael would act kindly towards Kelsey in the presence of others. But on June 2, 2005, Katie Briggs relinquished her rights to supervised visitation, setting the stage for further tragedy. Katie did not see Kelsey again until after August. In that month, a car accident further endangered Kelsey's fragile state. Tragically, less than 2 months after returning to her mother, Kelsey was dead. The state of Oklahoma charged Michael Lee Porter with assault and first-degree murder in Kelsey Briggs's case. Investigators also uncovered disturbing evidence of child pornography on his computer. Meanwhile, Ray was set to testify against her husband and was simultaneously under investigation for Kelsey's murder. The charges against Ray Smith included enabling child abuse against Kelsey. Prior to the trial, the defense arranged for Kelsey's body to be exhumed for a second autopsy by a private physician. The findings once more confirmed that Kelsey had suffered injuries consistent with sexual assault. In a chilling confession, Michael Lee Porter admitted to the horrific abuse he inflicted on Kelsey Briggs. Both he and Ray Dawn Smith faced charges in connection with Kelsey's tragic death. However, it was Michael who was hit with the grave allegations of assault and first-degree murder. As part of a plea agreement, Michael was convicted of a lesser charge, enabling child abuse. He received a 30-year prison sentence. During the trial, he claimed to have witnessed Ray committing acts of abuse, recounting 3 separate incidents. One of the incidents Michael described allegedly involved Ray abusing Kelsey in the stomach. Ray was convicted of enabling child abuse and sentenced to 27 years in prison. Her appeal for a reduced sentence was denied, leaving the families shattered. I must now reveal the harrowing details of Kelsey's injuries. The little girl bore a broken collarbone, extensive bruising, and abrasions on her nose and knees. Additional bruises marred her ankle and ribcage, each mark a testament to the abuse she suffered. The examination revealed a harrowing scene. The child, Kelsey Briggs, was reluctant to walk, her small frame marred by bruises. Her nose and eyebrows bore the marks of her torment, while a pronounced bruise on the left side of her forehead and a reddened area around her eye painted a distressing picture. Additional bruises marred her left hip and cheek, further underscoring the abuse she had suffered. Red spots dotted her jaw, and rub burns marred her delicate skin. Who were these individuals responsible for such cruelty? This case is utterly sickening. A child, innocent and vulnerable, had been subjected to unimaginable abuse and torture. The community was left reeling, calling for justice. In a passionate outcry, they demanded that the perpetrators be held accountable, ensuring they would never see the light of day again. Jessica Holloway continued the coverage, sharing that the family of Kelsey Briggs was present at the court that day, a sight neither she nor her colleagues had anticipated. Jessica reported on the tragic fate of 2-year-old Kelsey Briggs, who had died from blunt force trauma to her abdomen. Her family, engulfed in grief, attended the proceedings, desperate to ensure that no other child would endure a similar fate. They sought answers, hoping to prevent such horrific incidents from occurring again. The gathering was a step towards healing. They were eager to engage with officials, sharing their desire to understand the measures being put in place to protect vulnerable children. The loss of Kelsey Briggs was just the beginning of a deeper conversation. Sherry Heath's family, too, was present, keen to discuss the failures they had witnessed within the child welfare system. Their concerns about the Department of Human Services were palpable. They had endured a tumultuous journey and wanted to share insights about the systemic issues plaguing child welfare, particularly the lack of communication that could have prevented such tragedies. Ray Dawn Smith, Kelsey's mother, now found herself behind bars for 27 years, stripped of her right to appeal. Accused of allowing her husband, Michael Lee Porter, to subject Kelsey to horrific physical and sexual abuse, her case raised questions about accountability. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the caseworker assigned to the family had resigned amid the turmoil. Despite Ray Dawn Smith's conviction, the Briggs family felt the matter was far from resolved. They feared that Kelsey would never return, and their voices were silenced by a system that had failed the child. However, this family was determined to share their story, believing that their first-hand experience could shed light on the failures of the Department of Human Services. They hoped for a meeting where they could express their concerns and advocate for change. They yearned to share their painful experiences, hoping that their insights could contribute to a safer future for children within the state. After the news conference, the speaker took the time to shake hands with family members, showing a willingness to listen and learn from their ordeal. Reporting live from the Capitol, Jessica Holloway shared that a newly formed team was set to meet with frontline Department of Human Services workers that evening. However, this crucial meeting would remain closed to the media and the public. 3 years had passed since Ray Dawn Smith was found guilty of enabling the abuse that led to Kelsey's tragic death. Now, a new trial loomed on the horizon, raising hopes and fears alike. News reporter Casey Roebuck had just spoken with Kelsey's father, and she was ready to share more about this unfolding story. Smith's defense attorney argued that a juror from her 2007 trial had acted improperly, igniting a complex legal battle that would determine the fate of both justice and accountability in this heartbreaking case. In a desperate search for answers, Kelsey's father turned to the internet, scouring information about his daughter's murder. His heart sank further when news broke that an appeals court had granted Smith the opportunity to seek a second trial. Filled with dread, he prayed that this would not come to pass. Just as thoughts of cherished memories flooded his mind, the harshness of reality crashed down upon him once more.